being attentive and being alert. Not because baby Jesus is coming, so we got to get ready. No, it's about when Jesus comes. This Advent gospel today really is a continuation of a theme we've been talking about for some time. Now, I told you we're moving from Matthew to Mark, right? Matthew is no less than 8 parables we've been discussing it ad nauseum. Be ready, be awake. We talked about the wise and the foolish virgins. We talked about the talents. We talked about the man without the proper wedding garment. We talked about the unforgiving servant. We talked about the master, the gracious master who, hired people in his field all day long. And the people at the end got upset because the people at the beginning got upset because people in the end had received an equal amount of salvation that they had received for all of their toil and labor. All of that is all about the second coming. It's all about the apocalypse. It's all about getting ready. So here we are, moving from that ordinary time, Matthew, into a new season, and guess what? They're still talking about it. Mark begins chapter 13. In the beginning of that chapter is not a stone will be left upon another stone. He's talking about the destruction of the temple, but he's talking more about the end of the world. Be watchful, be alert. That is all about being awake spiritually. I looked those words up in the dictionary, and they're synonyms, meaning they mean the same thing. So if you look up alert, it says be vigilant, be watchful. If you look up watchful, it says be vigilant, be alert. They have each other in the definition. But I love alert. It's got this great second definition. It's like a bird hopping from branch to branch in a tree. Well, that's a good way of describing it. Because I'll tell you what, I've never seen a bird fall out of a tree, and I guess that if I was a bird and I was jumping from one limb to another, I would have to calculate wind direction. I would calculate my own weight, how the distance between my branch and the next branch. Am I going up? Am I going down? All these different things have to come into play. You got to be awake, right? It kind of reminds me of a time, I don't know, how long ago was that, Suella? You were in that play, Riders of the Flood. What was that, about a year ago? Yeah. Well, I'm not a big play guy. I don't really go to plays, but Suella's in the play. I got to go, right? So I go to this play, and it's called Riders on the Flood. And it's the history of Ronsford. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but actually Ronsford at one time had the largest sawmill in the world. At least I've been told. It was big. And what this play was about, well, it was about a lot of things, but one of the things in this play was about the fact that every year they would flood the Greenbrier River. Now, I don't know if they did that man-made, they opened up dams, or whether they just waited for the rainy season, but at some point, when the river was high, they would float thousands and thousands of logs, these big trees, down the river to get to the sawmill. This is before the railroad came in. And what would happen is these logs would get jammed up. And so Riders on the Flood is talking about the loggers that would actually have to step out onto the river, hopping from log to log with poles to try to free up the jammed up log situation. So you can imagine if you were out there dancing from log to log on a river, you ain't thinking about what's for dinner. You're not thinking about what am I going to buy my sweetheart for Christmas. Why? Because if you don't get your mind in the game, you're going to die, right? You jump on the log just wrong, you fall between them. Number one, you probably can't come up because there's so many logs, you can't even, but if you did, you're crushed, right? So you die. So you have to jump from log to log with complete attentiveness, complete alertness. You have to be dialed in, you have to be focused because your life depends on it. What Jesus is saying is, guess what? Your life depends on this. Be watchful, be alert. Your soul depends on this, just like the logger. Be watchful. What does that mean? Be an avid watcher. Well, I don't know. I think sometimes the best way that I learn, and I think it's probably true for many people, is For example, it's much more accurate to say God is not hate than to say that God is love, because our understanding of love is so limited that we put God in a little box when we say God's love because of what we think of love is. But to say God is not hate is not limit. It just says he's not this one thing. I can assure you that I've learned many more things over the years about priesthood from bad priests, saying, well, that didn't work. I'm not going to do that. Okay, the good priest. In the same way, if Jesus Christ is asking us to be watchful, what is his enemy trying to do? You know what I'm talking about. What is his enemy that has been hounding Jesus throughout his entire ministry? What is his enemy that finally convinced mankind to do his will and crucify him on the cross? His enemy that took him to the desert, tried to tempt him. What's he up to? What's his agenda? What does Satan want? What does Diablo want? What's his plan? The 3 Ds. Deceive, distract, destroy. If Jesus wants you to be an avid, Mama hates when I do that, I'm so sorry. If Jesus wants you to be an avid watcher, Satan wants you to be an avid sleeper. What does that mean? Well, I guess you could start by just asking yourself this question. When was the last time I even considered the state of my soul? When was the last time I even thought, well, gee whiz, I wonder what God's will is for my life. Because I know what my will is, all right? I know what I want to do. What does God want me to do? When's the last time we've asked ourselves that question? And you might say, well, Father, see, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever really thought about that. Well, congratulations. Guess what? You should at least entertain the possibility that you are asleep. That is spiritual sleep. And that's what Satan calls us to be, right? May he not come suddenly and find you sleeping. He wants you to be an avid sleeper. What's an avid sleeper? An avid sleeper's got a pile of work on the desk right here, got a TV player right there, and they're thinking about the next greatest thing that's going to bring them pleasure, or they're thinking about who they're currently angry at, or they're thinking about what's going on with Book Blizzard in the Situation Room, or they're thinking about this or that, this positive, negative, and all the distractions in the world. But they're not focused at all because they're distracted. Again, it gets back to Diablo's plan. If I can distract them for 70 or 80 odd years, convince them that the Holy Spirit doesn't exist, convince them that I don't exist, then I win. Why? Because battle's never fought, right? Distraction. What are you focused on? That's going to answer your question. Are you an avid watcher? Are you an avid sleeper? My friend Peter, he used to be a race car driver. He talks about all this information coming at you so fast when you're going 220 miles an hour. You can't focus on that. Why? Because if you don't focus on what you're going to do next in the next 2 seconds, you're going to die. Okay? It's that simple. Do we get so focused on all of this that we don't see that? That's what this gospel is about. Be awake, be alert, be watchful. Are you an avid watcher? Are you an avid sleeper? That's really the